9,000 milliamp hours on both phones here. So when you're dealing with batteries this massive, the question isn't just about who lasts longer, it's about who uses that power better. I'm here in the Digit Test Labs to put the brand new Nord 6 against the Poco X8 Pro Max. Performance versus endurance, let's go. By the way, if you like this t-shirt, you can order one for yourself along with other cool Digit merchandise only on the Digit shop. Head over now and order yours. Okay, the setup is quite simple. Both phones are 100% charged and brightness is set to 500 nits manually. The display profiles are set to natural, the refresh rates are set to default, and both phones are connected to the same 5 GHz Wi-Fi network. So with both devices sitting at a cool 24 degrees Celsius, I am kicking things off with a 2-hour YouTube video playback test. Visually, these are both top tier panels for binging on content, but they definitely have different personalities. The Nord 6 leans towards a warmer white balance in its natural profile, while the Poco stays cooler, a look I actually prefer here. When you dig into the specs, the Poco just offers more for the cinephile, featuring a 12-bit color depth and Dolby Vision support that really pops on Netflix compared to Nord's 10-bit panel with only HDR10+ support. It's a similar story with the audio too. While both have stereo speakers, the Poco sounds noticeably fuller and louder. Brightness wise, while both get incredibly bright in my test, the Nord 6 achieved an impressive 2750 nits, with the Poco X8 Pro Max achieving a much better 3450 nits. Now, the Nord does boast a 165Hz refresh rate over the Poco's 120Hz, but unless you're gaming, which I will get to shortly, the Poco feels like the more complete display package. Alright, after 2 hours of straight video playback, the Poco X8 Pro Max is already showing its efficiency at 95% battery, while the Nord 6 has dipped slightly further to 91%. So we're kicking off the 1-hour video recording session split between the rear and front cameras. This is where things usually start to heat up. Both phones are sitting at around 28 degrees Celsius before I hit record, so while this is rolling, let's take a quick look at the camera hardware. Both phones sport dual rear setups featuring a 50 megapixel primary sensor paired with an 8 megapixel ultra-wide. On the front, the OnePlus packs a 32 megapixel sensor, while the Poco features a 20 megapixel snapper. For video recording, there's support for 4K 60 FPS from the rear cameras on both. However, on the selfie side of things, the Nord 6 supports 4K 30 FPS and no 60 FPS, while the Poco X8 Pro Max supports 1080p 60 FPS but no 4K. With that, let's switch to the front-facing camera recording, but first a quick look at the surface temperatures reveals the Poco running relatively cooler, peaking at 32.8 degrees Celsius, while the Nord 6 peaked at 37.5 degrees Celsius. So for this round, we're going to fast forward straight to the end of the round, but before hitting stop, once again, a quick check at the temperatures show that the Poco is still doing the best in thermals with 30.4 degrees surface temperatures versus 34.5 degrees Celsius on the OnePlus. So after the video recording round, with a total of 3 hours now gone, the Poco X8 Pro Max is still in the lead with an impressive 88% battery remaining, while the OnePlus Nord 6 is sitting at 81%. With that, it's time for probably the most intense 1 hour of this marathon, the benchmarks round. This will definitely take a serious toll on performance and battery life, but first, the hardware specs. The OnePlus Nord 6 is powered by the Snapdragon 8S Gen 4 chip, but the Poco X8 Pro Max is doing something different. It is debuting the MediaTek Dimensity 9500S, a chip designed to stay faster for longer under sustained load. Both phones are paired with 12GB LPDDR5X Ultra RAM and UFS 4.1 storage, so the baseline for speed is also incredibly high. Starting with Geekbench 6, the scores give us our first real look at the CPU performance gap here. While the OnePlus Nord 6 puts a decent fight with a single core score of 2087 and a multi-core score of 6689, it is clearly playing second fiddle in this department. The Poco X8 Pro Max absolutely runs away with it, posting a massive 2631 in single core and an 8137 in multi-core. Moving on to Antutu, once again, the OnePlus Nord 6 puts up a strong 2.36 million, backed by a 700,000 CPU and 796,000 GPU score, which is honestly plenty for almost anything you'll throw at it. But again, the Poco X8 Pro Max just flexes. It hits a massive 2.6 million overall with its CPU and GPU scores sitting at 829,000 and 848,000 respectively. In the 3D Mark Wildlife stress test, both phones are neck and neck in terms of raw peak graphics power, with the Poco X8 Pro Max hitting a best loop of 15,964 and the Nord 6 right behind it at 15,752. However, stability-wise, the Nord 6 struggled to maintain that peak, tanking down to 54% stability with a frame rate that swung wildly between 34 and 111 FPS. The Poco was much more composed, holding on to 70.7% stability and keeping its frame rate in a higher 41 to 130 FPS range. Even when I checked the surface temperatures at the end of the 3D Mark round, the Poco was about 6 degrees cooler than the Nord 6. Finally, in the CPU throttling test, the Nord 6's CPU showed struggle under sustained load, averaging 295,000 GIPS with a stability score of just 55%. On the other side, the Poco X8 Pro Max averaged a much higher 474,000 GIPS and a maintained rock-solid 85% stability. In a real-world scenario, this means that while the Nord might start stuttering during a long session, the Poco is going to stay consistently smooth. I will expand on this in the next round, but first a quick look at the battery stats, and the Poco is still leading with 70% battery remaining, while the Nord is sitting at 65% battery. So we're in the gaming round, and remember I told you about the 165Hz screen on the Nord 6. This is where it is supposed to matter. The point is the Nord 6 uses frame interpolation to try and hit 165 FPS in select games, but we are basically waiting for game developers to catch up. For instance, in Asphalt Legends, the Nord 6 only hits 120 FPS, which is smooth. Strangely, the Poco X8 Pro Max just wouldn't budge past a locked 60 FPS. There's something wrong here at the developer end, I guess. However, if you're a BGMI or Call of Duty mobile player, the Nord 6 actually pulls ahead, hitting that 165 FPS mark, while the Poco is capped at 120 FPS. But there is a but. Just like we saw in the benchmarks, the Nord 6 gets warm fast. During my testing after a long session, I was easily seeing temperatures north of 40 degrees Celsius on the Nord, and you can definitely feel that heat on the back panel. The Poco is just calm. It mostly stays around 36 to 38 degrees Celsius even under load, and rarely even bothers to hit 40 degrees Celsius. It's that same pattern. The Nord gives you that extra speed, but the Poco is much more comfortable for a longer grind. And after an hour of gaming, the Poco X8 Pro Max has widened its lead with 62% battery remaining, while the Nord 6 is now left with 52%. Finally, we are at the last stretch, and I'm going to run an hour of Instagram on both phones because let's be honest, in today's day and age, whichever phone we use, most folks spend a lot of time on Instagram, and in doing so, how well are these phones optimized? Let's fast forward to the end of the round, and at this point, after 6 hours, we have a winner. To no surprise, the Poco X8 Pro Max finishes with 57% battery, while the OnePlus Nord 6 finishes with 47% battery. Here's a look at the battery drain breakdown on your screens. So on paper, you are getting a 9000 mAh tank on both devices, but after testing these phones in the Digit Test Labs, it is obvious they handle that power very differently. The Nord 6 feels like it is constantly redlining. It gives you those flashy extras like the 165Hz gaming and 4K selfie video, but it pays for them with high heat and a much faster drain. It is great for short bursts of speed, but it struggles to keep that energy up without getting toasty. The Poco X8 Pro Max is just a different breed. The Dimensity 9500S seemed way better optimized for the long haul. It stayed cooler, didn't choke under pressure in the benchmarks, and finished the test with a solid 10% battery lead. If you want a phone that actually makes the most of a massive battery instead of just burning through it, the Poco is the clear choice here. And there you have it, folks. Let me know your thoughts about these phones in the comments below, and don't forget to visit the Digit shop for some cool merchandise. As always, I'll catch you all in the next one. Thank you for watching.